Hi and welcome to the Bookkeepers Podcast. I'm Zoe Whitman. I'm here with Jo Woods and we're joined by Gareth Salomon from Xenon Connect today. Gareth, we had such a good webinar with you a few weeks ago and I know loads of people were interested in joining and finding out more about Xenon. So I'm excited to talk about that. So I wonder if you can start by telling us a bit about your background and what you do.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, thanks very much for you both for having me on. Really appreciate it. So I am a chartered accountant, heavily been involved in the bookkeeping side of things since, 2003, really, when I started in practice. Before that, did A-level accounts and bookkeeping, did a degree in accounts, then moved on to the AAT after that, and then did a chartered after that as well. So I was working in practice from 2003 in small and medium practices. And then in 2008, I moved to Grand Cayman to work for one of the Big Four for a couple of years. Spent 2 great years there. Realized it wasn't for me in terms of the work side of things. I wanted to be my own boss, have a bit more control of my life. So I started self-employed, started my own practice in 2010, which I ran until last July, when Xenon Connect took over full time.
Wow.
For me, really. So yeah, so it's been 26 years. I was working out before, since I started A-level accounts back in the day. So it's been a long time now. But yeah,
I love that. A proper accountant through and through. Love it. Found your calling early.
That's it.
So tell us about Xenon Connect. How did Xenon Connect come about, and what do you guys do?
So Xenon Connect is a cloud tool which plugs into Xero and QuickBooks, and there'll be Free Agent and Sage soon as well. And it extracts all the bookkeeping data. It runs it through 21 different bookkeeping checks to find those issues that we're all aware of that pop up from time to time, speed up that process, and allows you to push back the changes to the underlying bookkeeping package straight from within Xenon Connect as well. So how it came about really is literally just spending decades of my life sifting through nominal ledgers, like most of us have done in the past, especially when we're training, whereby we're looking for errors, looking for those needles in a haystack, we're looking through repairs, nominals, looking through aged debtors, aged creditors reports, for those items which we know stick out like a sore thumb when we spot them, but we've got no fast way of actually finding them other than manually reviewing those nominals. And for large clients, that can take a really long time, can't it, to actually find those needles in a haystack, which is where Xenon Connect was brought in due to my own practice's frustration with not being able to find those needles in a haystack as fast as we'd like to.
Oh my goodness. I mean, that's the dream, isn't it? Like being able to create your own solution to the problems that you have. Like how do you start like building something like that? Like, do you just start listing all the issues you have? Did you work with like some software or SaaS builders? How did you do it?
So I've always had a bit of a tech background, never enough knowledge to do the coding myself, from start to finish. But I knew a few coders that I'd worked with in the past on other projects, like nothing to do with accounting and bookkeeping, just things I was always interested in on the side, really just making websites, making little process and software packages to actually help with little things. And so I used one of those coders to get started with Xenon. So I've designed everything in Xenon in terms of how it should look, how it should operate. And then the coding team have done the clever bit of actually making it come to life in the background to actually bring it all together. Yeah, so it's my love, really. I mean, I finished in practice last year, as I mentioned, and I am sad that side of things have gone, but I feel like I haven't left it because I'm still working with so many practice owners working, on the problems in their own practice. And it means I can help more people now through the software, whereas I could just help, maybe a few clients in the past. I can sort of spread that help out.
I love this from the point of view of the impact you can have. Jo and I talk about, I mean, this is sort of, I don't know, it's related as business owners. Jo and I talk a lot about what impact can we have through the work we do, and what we can do at the Six-Figure Bookkeeper can reach more people than if we were working in practice still one-to-one with clients or with a handful of clients. We can obviously reach more people here, and that's kind of why we do this, and I think maybe why it's got so much momentum, because we're doing good in the community and the industry, just like you are. For anyone who's just from a sort of innovation point of view, like, did you ever think you were going to go and have like a side hustle that became a different thing? And how did you feel about like growing in that way?
I'd always hope to, because like we always see the word passive income, and I know that you guys are heavily involved with it in terms of six-figure bookkeeping and the great benefits it can bring to business owners if they can create that passive income. I'm not suggesting software is passive income in a true sense, really, because there's always work to be done. But it's something I've always sort of dreamed of having, something I enjoy, which is the bookkeeping and account side of things, and the tech side. Combining those, it's like the dream combination for me. So I feel like I'm doing what I should always have been doing now at this point. So it's quite nice, really.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's ever really a true passive income. I mean, very, very rare. Even if you have a property, things can go wrong and you need to do things with it. You might just, it's like, I like to call it leveraged income. It means that, you mostly, for what you get back, you must be putting in less hours than you would traditionally have thought you'd need to work for that. So if somebody, a bookkeeper or accountant is listening today, how would they use Xenon Connect in their practice?
So it's really easy to get started. So you can literally plug in Xenon Connect into a Xero QuickBooks client with 4 clicks once you've got that practice program started up. So it just does everything automatically. It pulls in all the bookkeeping data automatically. And we can provide a link to sort of how it gets started after, which I know we shared on the webinar previously as well. But what you're getting after that 4 clicks, and it takes about half an hour to sync the first time, is that automatic bookkeeping checklist, which is created, which provides just a clear and transparent view of the specific issues that that client appears to have in terms of the bookkeeping quality to fix. It's really easy to get started. And we spent a lot of time working out what not to put in it. And it sounds a bit daft, but when I know from my own experience that when I plug into practice software, often it's just getting started and getting your head around software to work out what we need to do. And it can be overwhelming. So really the key is for me is putting the core features that need to be in there, but having a really good reason to add any additional features, because it can just create overwhelm, in my opinion.
Well, when we talk about health checks and the data quality, what do you mean?
So health checks and data quality, essentially, double entry bookkeeping is based on rules, isn't it? You've got your debits and credits. We all know they must balance. So what we've done is we've leveraged into those rules by picking out situations whereby, let's say we've got a customer with an old unpaid invoice. Now we know there's a debit balance sitting there on that balance sheet on the debtors, trade debtors, that's been there for a long time. There's a rule there that says that we can't leave that there indefinitely. It either has to be written back if it's a bad debt, or it'll be paid at some point and netted off. So it's tapping into all those rules, and we've got 21 different bookkeeping data checks, which tap into the bookkeeping double entry rules really to identify quickly those potential issues that appear to be there within the underlying bookkeeping data. And all those 21 rules flow into this percentage score. So it's a health score, which looks at how old outstanding transactions are that are on the system. So, for example, those old unpaid invoices or old supplier bills or bank items that haven't been processed yet. It looks at how old they are, the value of them, and all these different data checks pushed together into one percentage health score to try and bring it all together. Now, there's always an element of subjectivity in terms of what the weighting should be for that health score, but the underlying number of issues is objective and clear, what needs to be at least considered in order to get that health score back up to 100%. So it's...
Sorry. No, I was just going to say that, and it's a great tool for your own business as well as your clients' businesses. And also what I like about it is that if you've got a list of clients and you can easily see their health score and you're like, oh, I don't know who to work on next, like not sure of like the flow of work, you can easily identify this client needs a lot of work. Everyone else is up in the higher percentages. This one needs some work. I'm going to spend some time. So it's kind of, I've linked it up to our own business, and it's like the gamification, isn't it, of anything? Yeah. It's trying to get that health score up. And when you're doing the work and like going into the data and like improving bits and pieces, and it's improving, you're like, oh, this is fun. So why not have fun while doing bookkeeping? Definitely.
And when you plug it into a brand new client, and I know we mentioned this in the webinar as well, that you've got something tangible there to show them. So when you're going into those first few meetings with them, you've got access to the Xero account, the QuickBooks account, and you've got this health score report there with actual issues that look like they need resolving. You've got the activity transaction data statistics there, so you know the scope of the engagement, you know how many transactions you'll be processing from month to month. And maybe you found one specific item whereby the client's underclaimed VAT in the past, or maybe their previous advisor has missed that VAT and not claimed it for them. It's quite a compelling offering for you to go into that meeting with them and say, right, it's going to cost you this for us to take on the service ongoing. It's going to cost you this to bring you up to date, but also as a sweetener to show you the value we can provide to you and your own business. We found this one transaction whereby you've underclaimed VAT. So we've instantly found you some money already. And they're just, it's literally a few clicks away from when you plug the connection into Xenon.
Yeah, I really like that you've got a conversation to have right at the beginning. I think people are afraid to even to say this is what the investment is to work with me, and actually being able to lead with really excited to talk to you about our proposal. We've actually, run this report for you, and these are a couple of things we've identified, and we'll talk to you about those. And then going into that is a really different way to have the conversation, because I think the client is expecting you to be like, here's how much it's going to be, and then be like, whereas if you're actually leading with, we're going to solve this for you, let's talk about that. How's that happened? What do we need to do next? What do we need to know that maybe we don't know?
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
a different conversation.
Definitely, and it's really powerful. I mean, I know from my own experience in my own practice, historically, I would go into a prospect meeting and my sole intention would be to build a bit of rapport with them, get to know them personally, get to know, essentially it always felt like the reason for that meeting was to get to a price for them, or at least get enough information to take back, and then at a future date, heaven forbid, you come back with a prospect with a proposal after the actual date. But that's just how it was back in the day. And it always felt like both sides were just waiting to talk about the money aspect of it in terms of how much it's going to cost them. Whereas the reality is, if you're transparent with why they're investing in you as a firm, and you've got that underlying data to support that, then we're no longer a black hole that they don't really understand. We're showing them the value we can provide and giving them a price to support that.
We were having a chat with our startup community, and we was talking about the confidence of getting onto sales calls. And someone there said, it's, I struggle with giving any value in that initial call without knowing anything about the business. And this gives you, it's a tool to be able to have conversations. And ultimately, that's where the value and, you can charge more is when you have a really good rapport, when you're giving value. So, and as well, you're interviewing them. I always think, you should be interviewing the client as much as they're interviewing you. Do you want to take them on as a client? Can you have a good conversation? Can you, you don't have to have all the answers. What the job of us at that point is just to highlight, wow, this is what we can see. Don't need to know exactly how it's going to be solved. You don't need to run the business. And I've had to learn this. I don't have to run all my clients' businesses. They run the business. They own the business. They get to choose how they use that information. But our job is to highlight it, bring it to their attention. And that's the thing. A lot of the time when we go onto sales calls, I think we underestimate how nervous the prospect is about speaking with a financial professional, because they're like, if you're going to ask me a question, I don't know the answer to, they're just as nervous. Whereas if we can say, well, this is what we can see from your records that you've mostly never even looked at, but your previous bookkeeper or your accountant has access to, I think that would be really level the playing field and make everyone a lot more comfortable and give everyone something else to focus on, not just what that price is at the end. So if you're a bookkeeper or accountant listening, and I mean, we definitely recommend that you see this product in action. The webinar we held with Gareth was amazing. I know that we had loads of people on the live call, loads of people booked up for a demo afterwards, and the chat was just nothing but positive from the people that are currently using it. So much so, like I said, I signed up for our own business because I was just intrigued to see how it worked, and it worked exactly as was said. If someone was to watch the webinar, and we're going to give the details, they're going to pop them in the show notes, how you can watch the recording. But what would be the next step to find out more as a practice owner?
So we've got the website, which is xenonconnect.com. They can go through and look through there to get a bit more flavour of what we do and see a few visuals there. Obviously, there's the webinar as well, which we'll share later in the notes. I'm always open to having calls with people running their own practices, because hopefully I can give a bit of value and a bit of context for how it can help you within your own practice. But also, I get so much value from those conversations because I always come away with a new idea of what potentially we can look to add to the product in the future. And one thing about Xenon is that we're always looking to improve it. So when we get feedback, we've got a Facebook community as well. When we get feedback within that community or on individual calls, we discuss that within our team here and we look to improve it. But yeah, I'd say just to get started, just do those 4 clicks. It's 4 clicks to get plugged in. Maybe choose a juicy client to get started. You've got 1 free organization for life you can choose. So, add that. It's a no-brainer, really. There's no risk there. So I always recommend doing that. And then just see what it comes out with. And then at that point, if you want to have a chat, then we can have a half hour to an hour meeting and talk through any questions that you have as a practice owner to see how Xenon can help.
In terms of, so we were talking about having the sales call with the client and being able to go into the call saying, I've done this little review of your accounts. This is what I found. I suppose I've got 2 questions. First of all, if you already have a client base and you want to bring this in and review their health score and have a conversation with them, how do you position that in a meeting? Because I know lots of people aren't having advisory type meetings, and the idea, like, people are maybe thinking, I'd love to have more conversations with my clients and upsell them cash flow support or something like that. And I feel like this could be part of that conversation as well. How do you position that the first time for your client? But also, how do you charge more for this, like as a service? Is it a way of charging more, or is it something that increases the value of the service you already deliver so you can charge a higher fee because you're giving them a better outcome?
So really, there's no right or wrong. And I've spoken to many practices and they do it both ways, really. So sometimes they will recharge it as a service to the client. So they'll say, okay, every quarter we're going to do this review of your books, especially where the client perhaps is involved in the bookkeeping themselves to some extent at least. We're going to make sure that we're on top of, for example, the director's loan account. It's not overdrawn. There's no section 455 issues, beneficial interest, that sort of thing. But also just for peace of mind for the client that they've got that review coming in, it can be really helpful, and they are prepared to pay for it because many firms are charging for that. I'm not saying every client will want it because it is potentially something new that they haven't had before. But the price point Xenon Connect is at now, it can be as low as £2 per client per month if you've got 100 clients or more, and it's only £4 at the most per client per month. So it's certainly a cost that can be absorbed, and many firms do absorb the cost of Xenon and use it as an internal tool as well. So as I said, there's no right or wrong way of doing it. It depends how warm your clients are and how you want to push it to those clients as an extra service. It's certainly something that you can use as an additional service, and many firms have done that already. But the main core of the system would be as an internal tool to make sure that bookkeeping is kept in good health, and it's that extra set of eyes and that time saver for you as the bookkeeper or the reviewer of bookkeeping.
And when you think about growing your practice, and I know when we bring on team members, it can feel very daunting. How do I know how they're doing, and how do I know they're doing the job correctly? This can be used for that as well, for staff and team management, as well as improving the outcomes for the clients. You can use it as part of team review. You could sit down with your team member and go through their list of clients and see where their health checks are at, and see if they've improved things. Do you have people that do that?
Definitely, yeah. So you can filter based on team members that got access to clients. So for example, if Bob Jones has got access to 5 clients and that's their portfolio, then you can see their average health score for the clients that they've got access to. We've had a discussion recently in our community about this, expanding it further as well, so that it almost gamifies the team. So not only does it gamify the bookkeeping process, but also, for example, you might have a scoreboard whereby each team member at the end of every month, it tells you what percentage is their average health score for that particular team member's clients. Obviously, if the practice wanted to optionally do that, it's not something that would be forced on them. So it's making the team members more productive as well. And it's also giving that oversight as a reviewer, as you mentioned, Joe, that you can see there's that audit trail. If they're dismissing items and saying, actually, these issues don't matter, but in reality, they do matter, you can see who's dismissed it on what date as well. So if there are any training needs for those less experienced team members, then that's something that the package can help with, certainly.
I mean, this is the beauty of managing and tracking data. Stepping into leadership role is not easy if you've never done it before. Stepping onto a sales call is not easy if you've never done it before. But this appears to help in both those instances. I can't say that. It helps you to have something to. It's not just your thoughts and opinions. It's, well, the data says this. So how can we move forward from this? And whether that is with a client and we can support you in this way and that way, and you're just highlighting things to them that they don't know, or maybe they do know and they've not done anything about it. I like the idea as well with the, quarterly or a monthly review, just using it as part of your arsenal to turn up to a meeting. And it could be part of a meeting where you review management report, you review Xenon Connect, you review the cash flow forecast. That sounds like a really good way to check in with your clients. And I think there's value there. I get that it could just definitely be used as an internal thing and not shared and spoken about. But you might not even share the actual software. You could just you could have an email and say, we've noticed these things about, you become so much more proactive with that client rather than just using reports from the past. It's how can we, I think it's a fabulous tool. And I know, obviously there are other competitors in the market. How would you say you are different compared to the main competitors?
Yeah, sure. So I've got nothing bad to say about the competitors at all. What I'd say, the reason that we started to create Xenon Connect is we wanted a checklist that was very clear how to drill down and fix things, no jumping around trying to find what the issues are. And secondly, one of the big differentiators is that you can push back changes. So not only does Xenon Connect find the issues, but it allows you in most circumstances to actually push back the corrections through the API connection as well. So you're not jumping about back into Xero and QuickBooks to actually fix things. So they're the two main differentiators. Price is a differentiator as well, but it's not something that I push because that's not what I deem to be important with this. It's the quality of the product is what we always look to differentiate on, really. But there is a price difference there as well. So Xenon is more cost effective, in my opinion.
I think from a bookkeeper or an accountant point of view, we've got to not think about cost of software if we know it helps us deliver a better, more valuable service to the client. So it's not, and I think that's one of the, if you ever go to an accounting show and you look around the room and you think, oh my gosh, what these people want to sell to me. And what we got to remember is that we, first of all, get to choose how we design our practice. And often we don't design the practice because we don't realize that's kind of our job as the leader of our business. But everyone here listening to this can get a piece of paper and map out the workflow. And if I'm giving the best service to my client, what happens and what software do I need to do that? Because I expect you have things that duplicate and, where you don't maybe need something, but bringing something else in would really help what your business looks like. And then you can think, well, if I use this piece of software and leverage it as because I know what it's like to go into Xero and be looking at a client and being like, yeah, that looks fine, But then you start drilling down and then you're like, oh, that's interesting. And you start asking questions and like, oh, what was that like? And then you're running reports and you're like, what was I doing again? So actually having that structure to work through to be able to go into a meeting with a client and deliver them something very tangible and then say, this is what we need to do next, keeps everyone focused and really shows them the value, because I think often people think it's like a smoke and mirrors thing, we're like, just like, yeah, it seems all right. I know that isn't how it works.
Yeah.
But it's easy for them to think that if they can't see that we've been through a process, and this adds that process that makes it tangible. And I think it shows the value. That is the biggest problem we've got in this industry. People don't see the value because we're not doing things that demonstrate the value.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And it puts it in a format, as PDF reports it puts it in a format that the business owner will understand as well. It's not in jargon. It's, it's not terms that we would use potentially as bookkeepers and accountants behind the scenes or internally. It communicates to them in language that they speak. So when we're looking at payback, if we're talking about £2 per client per month, and then all of a sudden that you're charging £100 per month or £100 per quarter for a review, obviously, it makes sense. That payback straight away is there. But also then if you're finding VAT errors for the clients as well, and you're able to potentially charge more for that, or maybe they're happy to pay a higher fee because they can see you're being proactive as a bookkeeper, then again, instantly that £2 per month is just, it's not a consideration if you're using the software. If you don't use the software, like any software, it's going to drain your resources. £2 a month per client. Let's be honest about that. We all know we have to use software and actually integrate it with how we do things within our system. But we've made it as easy as we can to be intuitive, to fit easily to how you do things within your own practice.
And just like I said to you about your competitors, we have competitors, and this is a tool that can help us stand out and make our client relationships a bit more sticky. And if they're gonna go to somebody else and look for cheaper, but they're not offering this kind of service, and pointing out areas, especially where if your client's doing their own bookkeeping and you're able to highlight what they're doing wrong consistently, and then there might be an opportunity for you to bring it in-house and not have to do that review. Yeah, I can see how this will differentiate us as a service provider. And I think as well, it's a case maybe sometimes, I don't know, maybe the bookkeeping isn't 100% up to date when you're on a call with somebody, but you've still got some really good data to sit there and talk through, because that sometimes happens. Maybe, something's happened and you can't be there. I think it's a really great tool, but like you say, like with anything, only if you're going to use it. And like Zoe said, with the systems of like how the flow of work, you need to, like with any new piece of software, integrate it and use it by habit. Yeah. And I'm sure in your community, there are people that, are utilizing it, have embedded it as a really great tool and will be able to help with that. And I think it's great when a software has a community to support it as well, because that's where the real learning happens, how people are actually using it day to day, not the people that have created it. Yeah. So that's all great. Gareth, thank you so much for your time again today. The webinar was a great hit. And like I say, we will link the recording so that people can catch up on that and actually get to see the software in action. And then I highly recommend getting yourself that free account, giving it a try with I like that you said your juicy client, get it in there. And see the value it can give, and give it. You've got nothing to lose, and then book in a call with yourself and see how you can help with the rest of the practice.
That's it. Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Gareth, and thanks everyone for joining us today. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Bookkeepers Podcast. Take care. Bye.
Bye.